In today's video, we are going to be talking about why you struggle to apologize and how to start taking better accountability. If you clicked on this video, you may have found yourself unable to physically apologize. You notice that you made the mistake, you notice where you went wrong, and yet you can't bring yourself to apologize. I've personally found myself so guilty of this within my relationship where my partner would even come first and be the bigger person and apologize after we had arguments, and I still found myself unable to apologize. There was something in me that was literally physically stopping me from apologizing. And I realized that the reason I was so afraid, this was literally a somatic reaction, and my body was stopping me from apologizing because of what happened in my childhood when I would make a mistake. And what used to happen in my childhood when I would make a mistake was I would get punished for making the mistake. So instead of my parents being understanding and having a conversation about what could have been done better, I was punished. I was criticized for making the mistake. Criticism was a normal way of communicating in my family. That was like the way that we spoke with each other. And for some people, it may even be fear of abandonment. If you ever made a mistake and your parent just literally like shut down, so maybe emotional abandonment, or maybe they actually just physically left and didn't interact with you, physical abandonment. And so I've realized that for most people, when they have a hard time apologizing and admitting that they're wrong, that they've made a mistake, and even for myself and my own journey, I've realized that that comes from my body trying to protect me. My body trying to protect me from admitting the mistake to avoid the punishment, criticism, or abandonment. And even when I knew mentally I'm in the wrong here, I need to apologize, my body couldn't bring me to actually say I am sorry. And this almost turns into even perfectionist tendencies, which a lot of fearful avoidance tend to have, because the protection mechanism of perfectionism, that kind of rhymes, it's just funny. But the protection mechanism of being a perfectionist is a way to avoid those things, to avoid the criticism, to avoid the punishment, to avoid the abandonment. It is a way to try to be the most perfect human being that you can be, so you can avoid those punishments and criticism, all those reactions that you receive from your parent. And until you are actually in a safe relationship with someone who can show you some form of understanding, and you're actually able to feel safe in your body, knowing that it is okay to make mistakes, knowing that you are human, you actually just are going to inevitably make mistakes, that was a big reframe for me. I actually believe that I had to show up perfectly and I had to have all the answers, and I just had to never hurt anybody's feelings, and I was constantly hyper alert. I'm like, am I saying the right thing to this person? Am I doing the right thing? Did I hurt this person's feelings by saying this thing? And the reality is, as a human being, like, I'm not a mind reader, can only do my best. And if I hurt somebody's feelings, or if I say the wrong thing, or if it comes off in a certain way, I can really only address it when they bring it to me. Because that is how healthy relationships work. It is not like I'm going to read other people's mind, which comes from trauma, comes from trying to predict what the person is going to do next because you're trying to protect yourself. But I am not a mind reader. I am not perfect. I'm human. We are all human, and we are literally by design made to be imperfect. That's just how it is. And until I accepted that, and until I really just took that in, that I'm just a human being, like just doing my best, and I'm going to inevitably make mistakes, but what really makes the difference is taking accountability. Because you can pretend like you don't make mistakes and that you're perfect all day long, but the reality is that you do. And when you don't take accountability for those mistakes that you're making, that hurts the relationship so much more. And secure attachment is not built on avoiding mistakes altogether and trying to be perfect, but rather it's actually built on rupture and repair. Knowing that we are all humans and we get to make mistakes, but it's all about how you repair that bond, how you repair that relationship. When you do make mistakes, how do you handle that? And hopefully on a mental level, this has helped you see and make that connection of why this is happening and why this is showing up in your body. But now, what do you do in the moment when that shows up? And before I even go into that, I want to reiterate that being in a relationship and being with a partner means that when you do get into an argument or anything escalates more than it needs to, that is both parties' responsibilities. Nothing is ever only your fault and nothing is ever the other person's fault. If someone takes the bait and kind of goes in, or one person is triggered and they're triggered by something that you're doing, obviously that is their own thing, but also kind of chiming in and going into that drama and almost taking the bait is what I like to call it. That is also a part of your responsibility and something that you contributed into the argument and into the relationship. And I'm not saying this to put the responsibility all on one person or to put the blame on another, but just knowing that when something just becomes instigated and goes out of proportion, it is usually both parties responsible. And with that being said, the first thing that you can do, the first step that you can take is by, if you still don't feel safe of acknowledging when you've made a mistake, when you're in the moment, is to have that conversation with your partner of letting them know, now that you know from this video, if you weren't aware of it before, is to have that conversation with your partner and say, when you're not in the moment of the argument, but later on when you're in a good space, of having the conversation and saying, hey, you know, when we're arguing and sometimes I can actually tell that I made a mistake, that it was something from my end, but I still keep going. And it's really hard, even though it's like something simple, it's really hard for me to just say I'm sorry or my bad. Like it was something that didn't even need to be escalated. And sometimes it escalates. For me in my relationship, there have been so many moments when something so small got escalated because I didn't just acknowledge that I did something wrong. I didn't just say, oh my bad, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I did that. And it was something that was so small but turned into something big because my partner wasn't feeling heard. They weren't feeling seen, and they felt like they were having a different experience than what actually had happened. So it's not always about the thing that actually happened. It's about all the little things in between and what that's actually saying. And so what he was hearing when I would not apologize is, oh, she doesn't really care. Oh, she doesn't really understand what this is actually about. And so sometimes people actually just want to be acknowledged, and sometimes people just want to see that you saw that you did something wrong. It's not actually meaning that you're a bad person, which is oftentimes one of the beliefs of fearful avoidance. And when you believe I'm a bad person, you can't let others see that and you hide that. And so you can't admit to your mistakes, which is another reason why it's really hard to admit that you made a mistake. So having that conversation with your partner when you're both in a good headspace and mentioning, hey, I know that I'm not great at apologizing, and I just want to share with you that in the moment, it becomes really hard physically actually for me to say I'm sorry, and I'm working through that. I'm still kind of like learning about this and I'm still working through this, but I just wanted to let you know that that's what's happening behind the scenes. And you don't even have to explain where it comes from. You don't have to say, if you want to, that is totally welcome, but you don't have to say that it's because I was punished in the past, I was criticized. Of course, that can help bring a moment of connection of your helping your partner understand what's going on, but you don't even have to share that. Maybe just starting off by sharing, it's just really hard for me and for my body to do it because of my past. It's just triggers something in me. And I just want you to know this now, because in the moment I might not even be able to verbalize this and I might not be able to apologize. And even just saying that to your partner and letting them know what's actually going on in the moment so they don't feel like they're in the dark, that actually does so many more wonders until you can bring yourself to be able to apologize. Just naming that and letting them know what's going on behind the scenes is going to help so much more, and help them not take the bait when you're like in the moment and you're triggered and you're just like doing all these things that you know you may regret later. And something that I didn't even realize also is that I felt like I had to explain myself, and that kept me from apologizing. So feeling like I had to explain myself and tell this whole story and like have like a whole reason and a whole thing of why I made the mistake kept me from apologizing, because sometimes I really just made a mistake. Sometimes I just like was just being human and I made a mistake and I don't have a whole reason. But when you're punished as a child and your parent expects a reason from you, and they expect you to be on your best behavior, and when you make the mistake you have to explain yourself, you feel like you have to have a reason for why you made a mistake. Like as a human being, but especially as a child, you're learning about everything in the world, and it like parents sometimes expect children to already be adults and know how to show up, but kids are just learning. And so just knowing that you can just say, I'm sorry. Just knowing that it can be as simple as, my bad, I'm sorry. And it was really hard for me to even admit that within my relationship, where it was something small. I didn't even notice that I wasn't apologizing. I just literally dismissed it. And that made my partner feel unheard and unseen and unacknowledged. And it was just a simple saying, I'm sorry. Like no explanation needed, no explanation necessary. That was all he needed. And it can be as simple as that. And this next thing that I want you to try might sound weird. It might sound like it doesn't really make sense in this video, but I promise you that it does. And that is to start getting more creative, to start playing around with maybe like a coloring book, just coloring in a coloring book, taking up arts and crafts, maybe scrapbooking, but starting out with something that feels doable for you and doesn't feel like overwhelming. So let me give you an example. So in the beginning, when I just like had this really strong perfectionist pattern showing up, I couldn't even bring myself to color in a coloring book that didn't have numbers in it, because I was so afraid of making mistakes. And even just regularly with creative projects or just doing anything creative, I was so afraid of making mistakes. And how I overcame this is by starting out by coloring in a color by numbers, or I don't know what you call it. It's like color by numbers, like book or coloring book. And that kind of took away the pressure of like, oh, like it might not be perfect, but like what if it doesn't look great, and what if the colors are off, and like all these thoughts that come up of like trying to make sure something is perfect. I started out that way so I could just allow myself to be creative without having to worry about the little things. That was just my way of like inching my way into like allowing myself to be creative. And so after I did the color by numbers, I was like, oh, okay, this is not so bad. And then I gave myself the permission to color in a regular coloring book without any numbers, that didn't give me any instructions on what colors to use, and it was totally up to me. And knowing that there wasn't really any mistakes to be made, it was just really up to me of what colors I wanted to put on there and how I wanted my vision to look, without having so much pressure or believing that, oh, there is a wrong way of doing it. Because really there is no wrong way of doing life. I'm going to reiterate again that there's no way to avoid making the mistakes. There's just taking accountability if you have done something wrong. That's really all you can do, as well as just doing your best. Actually, let me show you guys my coloring book. I actually just got a new coloring book, and it's so cute and girly. I want to show it to you. Give me 1 second. And I love the markers that I just got. Let me go grab them. So nobody asked for this, but I'm gonna show you anyways. So this is the coloring book that I got from Amazon. I think it's backwards in the video, but it's Girl Moments Cute and Comfy Coloring Book, and it's by Coco Wayo. It's so cute. It's literally so cute. They have so many nice coloring books, but this was like a test coloring page, and then there was, yeah, there was a lot of bleeding, so I actually use this cardboard when I'm coloring with it. But this is one of the ones I did on there, and literally, like, it's so much fun. It's like the perfect fall activity. But yeah, it's been so much fun. I actually used to hate using markers, but I found these markers like this. It's probably trending on TikTok and why I got influenced, but they're amazing. These are alcohol markers, and I got this pack from Amazon. It's not a brand name or anything. I can link them down below if you guys want to know. I don't think there's, maybe that's the name of the brand. I don't know. I don't know if you can see it, but they have so many colors, and it's so much fun. So much fun. Anyways, back to regularly scheduled programming. I just love these. Where was I? But yeah, just literally starting out by allowing yourself to be creative and allow yourself to make the mistakes in this way that is like not really like a life or death situation, or it's not like this really, it doesn't feel like this really big thing, although sometimes it really does. Like it feels like, oh my gosh, like I can't color and use these colors, and like I can't just kind of like, it's kind of like being afraid to color outside of the lines. If you've ever been punished for that or been criticized for that or made fun of, that can also come from that. And so just allowing yourself to be playful, allowing yourself to be creative can really help you lessen that intensity that comes from making mistakes and feeling like you have to be perfect. And the next point that I have is to allow yourself to be exposed. And that can take some building up to. It can take some time to get used to, because as a fearful avoidant, you might view vulnerability as scary. You might view vulnerability as something that is life-threatening and it's dangerous. Like you cannot be vulnerable, you cannot let yourself be seen and exposed, and you cannot let your flaws be shown. So you hide parts of yourself and you pretend that everything is under control, that you're perfect, that you have all the answers. And so allowing yourself to be vulnerable and be seen and just allowing yourself to be exposed can actually be such a potent and healing medicine for you. And this is not very easy to do. I will say from my own experience, it's not easy to do. It's easier said than done, but it becomes so much easier to do when you feel safe with someone. And one journal prompt that I want you to reflect on and ask yourself is, what am I afraid of others finding out about me? Because oftentimes what you're afraid of others finding out about you, you also hide from yourself. You hide it from yourself. And when certain emotions come up or certain experience show up for you, or certain character traits that you have that you hide from other people, they show up and you kind of pretend that they're not there because you are hiding from them. Allowing yourself to be exposed, allowing yourself to see all parts of you and acknowledge that you actually have good and bad character traits, that you are human and you experience a wide range of emotions, that you have these contradicting aspects to you that sometimes make you feel like you're a crazy person. You're like, how can I think this one thing and then I have this completely opposite desire? And so when you have so many contradicting emotions, and when you have these character traits that maybe you don't love about yourself, that you see as negative, that leads you to use perfectionism even more to protect yourself. And so just kind of ripping the band-aid off and showing your all sides to you, even if it's just to yourself at first, just really sitting with those things that you have written down. And I want to encourage you to pause the video here and maybe just take a second to reflect on this and look at what you've written down. Look at the things that maybe you have been afraid to acknowledge for yourself, not even to say to anyone else, but just really acknowledge and see for yourself. And that might not be easy to do right off the bat. Maybe that's even difficult to write down or just acknowledge, but just knowing that there are parts of you that are waiting to be seen, that they're not really the ones that were praised, they weren't the ones that seen of you as a child. Maybe there were parts of you that were punished, maybe there were parts that were criticized, but just realizing that those parts are still there and they're still calling for your attention. And I know this doesn't seem like it relates to apologizing and taking accountability, but what happens is when you try to hide certain parts of yourself and try to still pretend like you are this perfect human specimen, like, you're never going to really see yourself for who you really are and just get to the core of who you really are and accept all that you are. And it becomes harder to apologize when you do make mistakes, because that's not really, that doesn't line up with your beliefs. That doesn't line up with the belief that you're a human and you do make mistakes, and there are parts of you that are not perfect and that you maybe don't like to see. And if that feels really difficult to do on your own, or you're like, I don't even know what parts of me are like the parts that I hide, maybe you've dissociated from your body completely and you're like, I don't even know how to connect with that part of me. I've literally just hid it away and it's just like somewhere really, really deep, and I don't even know how to face it. I don't even know how to access it. And that part, may actually accessing that part and being with it and acknowledging it and seeing it and allowing yourself to be seen in vulnerability may be the thing to unlock your healing. Maybe the thing that helps you feel more secure in relationships. When you allow yourself to, it may be the final piece to allowing yourself to finally be secure in a relationship and to not feel like you have to hide parts of yourself, or not even feeling afraid of being exposed. And so if you feel like, I don't really have a safe person to do this with, I don't even know how to do it with myself either, I am always here for you. If you want to book a somatic session, I will leave the link to that down below. Or you can look into somatic therapy. I believe that there is an abundance of resources, there is an abundance of things in this universe that are here to help support you and help you on your journey. So just know that you are not ever stuck, that you are just doomed. Like, there's always resources, there are things to help you heal. And that brings the video to a conclusion. I want to hear what your thoughts were, any insights that you had, any questions that came up, maybe topics you want me to cover in future videos. I love reading your comments, so please share them down below. Also, do you guys love how I match with my comforter today? It's so funny. I'm like in such a green mood. It's just so funny. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.